Hey guys, Megan here, and today I am going to discuss the next installment in the Little Women series, which is Little Men. Little Men is the story of Jo March, all grown up, and how she runs a school for boys. Now, this video will include spoilers for Little Men and Little Women, so if you care about that, then don't watch this. If you don't care about it, or if you've read the book, welcome here! The whole reason why Louisa May Alcott wrote this, which is interesting, is that her brother-in-law, John Pratt, aka John Brooke, the husband of her sister Anna, aka Meg March, passed away. So when her brother-in-law passed away, he left her sister Anna and their two children. And so Louisa wanted to earn more money for them. She knew that these boys needed more money. So she specifically dedicated this book, Little Men, to them because she wrote down to write this book to earn money for them. That was her purpose. So she didn't set out going, oh, I just love the March girls. I want to write more about them. I mean, obviously, she and her sisters are the March girls. She was doing this for money, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just interesting to know about that, to be like, okay, so that did kind of affect how she wrote it. So I did enjoy this book. I thought it was a charming children's book for the most part, but this was a reread for me, so I was expecting this. I was expecting not to love it, and I didn't love it. I just find that it doesn't hold a candle to Little Women. I find that as I read Little Men, I just want to hear more about the March girls, more about the March family, and then I'm not minding hearing about the boys once in a while, but the fact that the whole story is from these boys' perspective, her students, as she's running the school, it's from their perspective, and we don't get to really come at the whole novel from Jo's perspective. There are a couple moments where we see things from Jo's perspective, but really, the lion's share of this is from the boys' perspective. The other thing about Little Men is that it takes place in a school, so there's a lot of lessons to be learned, but what that means is that this book is very much about teaching boys and girls to behave well, to have good morals, good manners, and that's all good, but it just comes across as really preachy in my opinion. So, like, some people say, oh, Little Women's a bit preachy. I don't really think so. I think for all the lessons learned, I think it's earned. I think the characters, like, it feels like it's supposed to happen, like the characters have really gone through something to learn this, whereas this more feels like more of a lesson with a story kind of holding it together. Now, one thing here is that what is exciting about reading Little Men is that we get to see who these boys will become when they are grown up in Jo's Boys. And if you haven't read Jo's Boys yet, if you've read Little Men and you're a bit like, I'm not enjoying this, I don't think I'll keep going with the series, well, I remember loving Jo's Boys. The last time I read it about 8 years ago, I saw Little Men as more of a stepping stone to get to Jo's Boys. There's a lot of really fun stuff, and from what I remember, there's a great feminist subplot. So if you're thinking of giving up on the Little Women series, just hold on, because Jo's Boys is delightful. One thing that I was really wondering, I was trying to remember how this turned out, is how does Jo translate from Little Women into Little Men? In Little Men, I guessed she was about in her mid-30s, or maybe even younger, maybe early 30s, so she's still very young. But I was remembering her as being like this older woman, and I was trying to remember how she translated from Little Women to Little Men. She actually translates pretty well. She's, they talk about how Jo loves it when the boys bring in all their animals and their dirty treasures that they found in the forest or at the by the water, and so how she loves that and she appreciates them, she understands the boys, and how there's this one storyline where the little boys make kites for the little girls, and Professor Bear, her husband, makes sure that the boys also make a kite for Jo so that Jo can go flying a kite. So the boys are helping the little girls get the kites up in the air, hold the kite while they run to get the kite up in the air, and then Professor Bear does the same for Jo, and it's like, oh, that's so sweet. So there are quite a few moments where Jo does seem like her old tomboy self. So that was nice. And I do appreciate it when Louisa May Alcott refers to her as either Joe, Mrs. Joe, or Aunt Joe instead of Mother Bear, which she sometimes uses, Bear because of their last name. But Mother Bear, like that's not Joe to me. That sounds so strange and foreign. So I don't love that when she does that. But I appreciate Mrs. Joe or Aunt Joe or just Joe. Now, I think what put a damper on this book for me is that it hasn't aged well. And, you know, you can say that about pretty much any book that's more than 5 years old. You can pretty much say that about anything. But there was a lot more of that in Little Men than I remembered. There was a lot of casual racism and fat shaming. And I did not enjoy reading those. Yeah, it just was very uncomfortable and it was disheartening, and I'm sure it would have been disheartening for readers in that time who were overweight or who were of a different race than her. So, and you know, it's funny because we know of Louisa May Alcott that she was an abolitionist and she was very, you know, firmly believed in equal rights for all people, but it doesn't mean that she is not, I mean, it doesn't mean that she's not entirely above reproach in this area. So, yeah, that wasn't enjoyable to read about, and I wonder if this will be showing up more in some of her other books that I haven't read in a while. I've read all her books, but I haven't read Jo's Boys in like 8 years or something. So I'm really hoping we don't get any of that in there. Now, one thing that I absolutely love about this book, and that is something that Louisa May Alcott does really good, like across the board, is she writes little children really well. Like, they are adorable. So in this book, Jo has a 5-year-old son, Robbie, and then I think he's like 1 or 2, a 2-year-old son named Teddy. Oh my goodness, they are so cute. Particularly Teddy. He is adorable, and he has a special relationship with one of the boys named Dan, and he always calls him my Danny. My Danny's coming soon, he says, and he's just like so adorable. So she does that really well in all her novels that feature little children. She writes them really, really well. Here is a problem I have with Little Men, which almost makes me have a problem with Little Women. I love the Jo and Laurie storyline, and I love that Laurie ends up with Amy and Jo ends up with Professor Bear. But when they've been married for, I don't know, 5-7 years, Laurie to Amy and Jo to Professor Bear, Laurie and Jo are still like this. They are still best friends, and sometimes it seems a bit odd. For instance, at one point, Jo strokes Laurie's hair in her lap. At another point, he strokes her face. And it just seems a bit odd for them to be doing that when they're married to other people. So it's just a little bit like, oh no, that's not how I would have liked to see their relationship develop. So it's too bad. I would have liked to see if all 4 of them could have been friends together. And, you know, I don't really see Amy and Professor Bear necessarily being, you know, pals, but they could be, like, they could grow to like each other. So I would have liked it more if all 4 of them had been together instead of trying to keep this relationship that she had, this friendship that she had from before, the same. Like, it's just, I think it needed to grow a bit more. Now, for me, the story really picked up when my favorite character of Little Men showed up, and that is Nan. I love Nan. As a kid, I wanted to be Nan. She is like the tomboy. She's feisty, she's brash, she's brave, she's abrasive sometimes, but she's got a really good heart, and she's so kind, and she cares for people. People call her, well, first they call her Mrs. Giddy Gaddy because she talks a lot, I think, and then they call her Dr. Giddy Gaddy because she's always like, bandaging people up and you know, taking out splinters for the boys and doing all this stuff. So she's really doctoring them. And yeah, Nan is my favorite. She picks up the story. She's the new Jo. Jo even refers to herself as like she is a Nan, like she's like Nan. So yeah, I thought that really helped the story along a lot. So let's talk about some minor throwbacks to Little Women. See if you guys caught these, I'm sure you did. Nursey Hummel, she's like the nurse of the school. Nursey Hummel, that's Mrs. Hummel from Little Women. If you remember in the 1st and 2nd chapter, they bring their food to a poor German family nearby who are starving, basically. They bring their Christmas breakfast to them and feed them. That Nursey Hummel is Mrs. Hummel from that story. There's one part where Daisy, Meg's daughter, is listening to Nat, one of the boys, play the violin, and she's looking all dreamy and just loving it. And Jo thinks, oh my goodness, she looks so much like my Beth, and she kind of gets teary or misty-eyed. So it was nice that there could be at least one mention of Beth in this sequel to Little Women. Okay, well, I think that was basically all I had to say on Little Men. Like I said, I did enjoy it, but I did not love it. So if you loved it, I'm really happy for you. But if you didn't love it, know that that's okay. Like, you can hate it if you want, but it will get better. Believe me, it will get better. We do have some exciting books in the Louisa May 2020 read-along coming up. I love Jo's Boys so much. I love Eight Cousins, Rose and Bloom. Work is a very different kind of work. It's an adult novel, so you might find that one really enjoyable, and it's very autobiographical of Louisa May Alcott's life. So yeah, let me know what you thought of Little Men in the comments. I would love to hear about that. Let me know if you're going to keep going with the read-along, or if you're interested in any of the books coming up. But yeah, I think that's all I had to say. So may you all be filled with peace, hope, love, and joy. So take care, everyone. Bye.